It was a quiet dawn on the Atlantic, the kind of morning when the sky blushes pale gold before the sun climbs high. The waves stretched endlessly, whispering secrets to the horizon. In the middle of it all stood Captain Richard Phillies Thompson, a man of 52, weathered by years at sea. He had earned his nickname, Phillies, back in his youth because he never sailed without his worn Philadelphia Phillies cap, a symbol of home and stubborn resilience. Crewmen joked that the cap had seen more storms than most sailors, yet to Captain Phillies, it was more than cloth and stitches, it was memory, a reminder of where he came from and what he still carried within his heart. For many, Captain Phillies was just another merchant ship captain, steering cargo vessels across oceans. But those who worked with him saw something deeper, a man who treated every crew member not as subordinates but as family. He believed the sea demanded more than skill, it demanded unity, compassion, and courage. And that was exactly what he carried inside, though beneath his calm authority lived a pain he rarely spoke of, a loss that still followed him like a shadow on every voyage. His daughter, Emily, had passed away when she was only 12, taken by a sudden illness no doctor could prevent. She had been the light of his life, the reason he wore that Phillies cap with pride, because Emily had once placed it on his head, declaring, "Daddy, you're my captain now." After her passing, he buried his grief in the endless rhythm of the sea. His wife, unable to bear the silence, had left soon after. All he had left was the ocean and the men who looked to him for guidance. To them, he was unshakable. To himself, he was still a father mourning a child. That morning, as the ship carved through gentle waves, news crackled over the radio, a distress call, faint but urgent. A small fishing vessel had been caught in a sudden squall just 50 nautical miles ahead. Its crew, 2 brothers and their aging father, were stranded, their boat crippled and taking on water. Merchant ships rarely changed course for small vessels, protocol often dictated that coast guards handle rescues. But Captain Phillies didn't hesitate. He turned the wheel himself, ordering his ship toward the coordinates. "Captain, if we divert, we'll be delayed 2 days, his first officer warned. Phillies adjusted his cap and answered simply, "Cargo can wait. Lives cannot." The crew followed without question. They had seen this before, Phillies choosing people over profits, every single time. As they drew near, the battered fishing boat came into sight, tossed like a toy in the waves. The 3 men on board were clinging desperately, faces pale with fear. Without hesitation, Phillies directed a lifeboat to be lowered. He could have sent others, but instead he climbed down himself, gripping the ropes with steady hands. "Captain, let us handle it," a young sailor cried. Phillies shook his head. "A leader doesn't just point. He leads where it matters most." The descent was perilous, the sea clawing at their small lifeboat, but Phillies rowed with a strength that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than muscle, from a place of old promises, from the memory of his daughter's faith in him. When they reached the fishermen, he shouted over the roar of waves, "Hold on. We've got you." One by one, he pulled them into the lifeboat, his arms straining, his heart pounding. The eldest of the 3 collapsed in his arms, whispering a broken, "Thank you," in a language Phillies did not fully understand, but compassion required no translation. By the time they returned to the ship, the crew erupted in cheers. The rescued men wept, clinging to Phillies' hands as though he were an angel sent by the sea itself. That night, after the storm had passed, the ship became quiet again. The fishermen sat wrapped in blankets, their voices trembling as they told their story in broken English. They had been at sea to feed their families, but the storm had nearly swallowed them whole. Without Phillies, they would have been lost forever. One of the younger brothers, his eyes wide with gratitude, said something that pierced Phillies' heart. "You, Captain, you save us. You are father." The words stirred something long buried. He realized that in rescuing these strangers, he had been given a chance to honor the role he once cherished most, not just as a captain, but as a father. Days later, when the fishermen were safely returned to shore, they embraced him tightly, tears streaming down their faces. They pressed into his hands a small wooden carving of a ship, saying it was all they had to offer. Phillies accepted it with reverence, as though it were treasure. To him, it was not wood, it was a reminder that compassion builds bridges stronger than any steel. But the story didn't end there. Months after that rescue, a letter reached the shipping company addressed to Captain Phillies. It was written in careful English, shaky but heartfelt. It came from the young fisherman he had saved. "Captain, my family live because of you. My father lived to see grandchildren. I study English because I want to tell your story. I tell people in my village, a man in a red hat save us. We call you Captain Phillies. Now I understand in English, you are not only a captain of ship, but captain of kindness. Phillies read the letter again and again, his eyes wet. For years, he had carried grief like an anchor. But here was proof that Emily's spirit lived on, not in sorrow, but in the love he still shared with the world. He realized that being a captain was never just about steering ships through storms, it was about steering hearts toward hope. From that day, every time he looked at the sky over the open sea, he imagined his daughter smiling, whispering, "Daddy, you're still my captain." And he finally believed her. The world remembers heroes who change history, but sometimes, the greatest heroes are those who change hearts, quietly, selflessly, without demand for recognition. Captain Phillies never wrote books about himself, never chased fame. Yet, in the broken English of a grateful fisherman, his story found life. A story of kindness crossing oceans, of compassion explained not in words, but in deeds. And so, the lesson of Captain Phillies is simple yet eternal. True leadership is not measured by power or position, but by the courage to put others before yourself. His life was a reminder that even in the darkest storms, humanity can be the light that saves us all.